do a short video for you showing you how to needle felt on your wool ball. So you need a wool ball and you need a felting needle. This is a felting needle here. Okay, I have a cat. Hang on just a sec. Go on, shoo shoo. The thing to remember with these felting needles is they are extremely sharp, and although my dad often says that it's not really a project until somebody's bleeding, try to avoid it as much as possible. They really hurt and you bleed like crazy. So you just need these two things, and then of course you are going to also need some wool. We have some beautiful dyed wool here. This is from Custom Woolen Mills right in Carstairs, and I'm going to be doing a sort of a style that is inspired by our prairie night sky in the wintertime. So this is how we're going to get started. I've already, as you see here, I've already done a little bit of work just getting this started here. And sometimes I like to map out my design in advance, so I'll have a good idea of what I'm planning to do. Other times I wing it. It really just kind of depends on what's inspiring to me in the moment. When it comes to these sort of ornaments, the sky is the limit. You can really do anything. I've seen people do beautiful faces of like raccoons or foxes. Those ones are popular. I've also seen people do something that's a little bit more abstract, you know, just stripes. I have seen people do designs that are based on those vintage 1950s and 60s shiny bright ornaments, the glass ones. So really you can do anything you want to do. It's whatever is your preference. You can map it out. Sometimes it is useful to kind of pinpoint where the top and the bottom of the ball are going to be. You can stick a pin, the kind like the quilting kind that have the plastic ball on the end. You can stick a pin so that it's kind of centered, and then you can have kind of a guide to work from. It depends on how detailed and how oriented you want to be in your design. This is going to be a lot more basic, so we're not going to get into that kind of detail. So, okay, so let's begin. So I have the ball, and I'm going to take some of my own advice, and I'm going to mark the top and the bottom. So I'm just going to stick this pin into the top, and then place my finger sort of on the opposite bottom and stick a pin in there as well. So there, top and bottom. Now I'm going to take my felting needle and some of this beautiful blue fiber wool, and I'm going to sort of place it where I want the next part of my design to be. So I'm going to move over here. I'm going to do another sort of swirl shape. Now, if you wanted your design, if you wanted the ball to be all blue, let's say you wanted to start with a base layer of blue, you could use the same technique that we used for felting, for felting the ball by hand, just add a cover layer of blue, and that would give you your start. Or you could always take the needle felting approach and drive it all in with your felting needle. I find that takes a little bit longer. It certainly will change the shape of your ball somewhat, so you'll need to be careful about that. But it's certainly a technique you can use. So what I do here is I've begun to map my fiber. This is the path I want it to follow, and I take my felting needle, and I'm just gently jabbing it. Now I'm not going to do this too hard or too thoroughly at this stage. I want to leave some flexibility just in case I decide I don't like it after all. If I don't like it and I've already jabbed it all down like this, you can remove this. You just pick it out with your fingernail and it pulls right off. But it's just a little bit more work. So I like to map things out a little bit before I commit. So it's just a little bit like getting the path down, getting the orientation down, making sure I'm happy with this shape, all those kinds of fiddly little things that come second nature to people who are naturally creative and artistic. But for those of us who maybe this isn't quite the medium we operate in all the time, you know, we need to plan a little bit more. So this is how I do it. And then I'm just taking my felting needle when I'm happy with the way things are going, and I'm just going to start poke. I'm just poking throughout on the path that I have set with my fiber. Again, watch your fingers, especially if your wool ball is white. And you can see it's already taking shape. It actually moves pretty quickly. It's one of the things that I love about this, because my delayed gratification gene is not strong. The nice thing too about sometimes taking on a design idea that's a little bit more abstract is that it can really be anything you want it to be. It doesn't have to follow anything. If you decide to make a face or something, it should recognizably be a face, whereas an abstract can be anything. So some ideas that you might want to consider would be things like the Northern Lights. We actually we do a kit for that one. The Northern Lights would be a great one. And that could be kind of an abstract thing. Designs and patterns that you see elsewhere. So this has kind of got a little bit of a paisley inspiration. So you know, you could certainly pick designs and patterns that you see somewhere else. You could do larger scale things like leaves can be quite nice. If you wanted to keep something that's sort of recognizable and looks like something but is still quite simple. So there's lots of things that you can do, and certainly going on websites like Pinterest or others will show you lots of options. Just bear in mind that in many cases those are being done by people who are quite experienced. Again, if you want to, you can always map it on the ball so that you have points of reference with your pins. I've also seen people sort of sketch out their pattern and then stick to it. One of the other things that I have done in the past is I've used actually yarn. So the yarn forms the outside outlines for my pattern, and then I just fill in either over the yarn or leaving the yarn to sort of help define the shape. And you can do any of those things, whatever suits you best, but sometimes it's nice, especially as you're just learning the technique and the way things look, to just keep it kind of abstract and kind of go with what your gut tells you. So there you have, there's the first part of our pattern. Now this to me looks kind of flimsy. You can see the white coming through here. I don't really like that. So I'm going to add another layer of blue. What I will do often is you just need a little. I like to build up my layers slowly. So I will take, it just gives me more control to do that. I will take my little bit of fleece, my dyed fleece, and I will lay it in the pattern, having twisted it a little bit so it's a bit denser. Pick up my felting needle, tap it in just lightly where I want it to go. And then poke it in place. Oh, that's already so much better. Catching a little bit of those longer fibers that are sort of sticking out, just tucking them into the pattern, the design, making things nice and tidy. Don't forget to go along the edges. It helps to define those edges. That can be a look that you like. You don't have to, certainly, but it can be a nice effect. And there, already you can see that right here, the pattern has filled in. It's a lot less transparent, translucent. So I'm going to keep doing that and building up my pattern bit by bit. Okay, so this is where we're at, top or bottom, I don't really know yet, and this is what we've got. I've sort of taken my inspiration as it evolved. I feel like this says Chinook. I feel like this says Chinook. So I'm going to add a couple of little embellishments in some of these open spaces, and then we'll add the string and it'll be ready for hanging. So stay with me. So for this stage, I have got most of the design in that I want. I'm going to put my finger and my thumb on the top and bottom pin, and you'll see I've got other pins stuck in. This is so that I have a place marker for the next phase of my design here, and it's just something so I can see visually how it balances. I think I'm done with this. I'm very happy with it. I think it's really cute. I'm going to put the string on so that it can be hung. Pull out my pin that marked what I've decided arbitrarily is going to be the top. Center some red yarn that I have here. And just as we've done all along, poking, poking, poking. Sometimes people like to tie a knot so that there's a bit more structure to poke in. Just poking, 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 poking. Now for those of you who are observant, you will notice I am not using the needle I started with, and that is because felting needles break, and I broke mine. So this is a second needle. That's why we include 2 needles in our kits. And there we have it. I think that's all right. I'm going to call this Chinook Wind.